advantage of the blessed days to strengthen our faith. The blessed days and night that we are living today, and inshallah, may Allah give us life to witness the months of Ramadan, inshallah, starting next week. As faith and belief, is defined by to utter by your tongue, fulfill its pillars, and solid conviction in the heart and the soul. When you say I'm a believer, it's something you say with your tongue, it's something you will fill its pillars, and it's a solid conviction in the heart and the soul. Faith, conviction, means to worship Allah with illumination from Allah, with guidance from Allah, to seek His bounties and to fear His punishment. Faith and conviction in the heart of the servant does not stay the same at all time, but increase and ascend the ladder of perfection with obedience, and also decrease and weaken with sins, either to the lowest or to dissipate and go away altogether. Faith and conviction is an accumulation of different parts and components, as it's clarified in both Sahih on the authority of Abu Hurairah, that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said what can be translated, faith is 70 some or 60 some parts. Its best, its highest of these parts, of these components, is to say La ilaha illallah. Its least is to remove harmful objects from the road, and being mindful of Allah is part of faith, a component of all these elements. Parts and components of faith, from guidance, certainty, and humility, are plenty. If any part increase, then collectively the sum will increase. Imam al-Ujri narrated that Ibn Abbas, may God be pleased with both of them, said in explaining verse number 4 of Surah Al-Fath, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what can be translated, it is He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is He who sent down tranquility into the heart of the believers, that they may add faith to their faith. Ibn Abbas said, explaining the verse, said, Allah sent Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the revelation to witness to La ilaha illallah. That was the first command to the Prophet Muhammad, to witness that La ilaha illallah. And when the believer realized it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put forward to them prayers. And when they realize it, when they realize the prayers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for them fasting. And when they realize it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for them zakah. And when they realize it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for them pilgrimage. And when they realize it, Allah put forward for them jihad, struggle for the sake of Allah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed their faith when He said, this day have I perfected your religion for you, completed my favor upon you, and have chosen for you Islam as your religion. Now we can see, my dear brothers and sisters, as the servant, you and me, ascend from worship to worship, from obedience to obedience, he rises in his conviction and faith. As you perform and you get closer, you arise and ascend in your faith. The Quran gives many examples of this increase and rise of the state of goodness and righteousness as the servant do his part. It's always start by you and me. Guidance is there, we have to ask for it. Humility is there, we have to ask for it. Humility, for example, is a part of faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the believer when they hear the Quran being recited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they fall down on their faces in tears and it increase their humility. You notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the believers. The believers which will possess and will acquire a soft heart as he ponder and reflect reflect the Quran that he is listening to and listening to the verses of the Quran. With that, their faith will be more solid and humility will increase in their heart. It's not just turning the Quran on and listening with no focus, with no pondering. It's as if a song is going on with no meaning. That is not what it's meant to be. When you recite the Quran or the Quran being recited, you have to ponder, you have to understand, and with that, humility will increase. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Maryam, verse 76, and Allah does advance in guidance those who seek guidance. And Allah provide guidance to those who seek guidance. Meaning, if Allah's servant resigned to the guidance of the Quran and the Sunnah and accomplished good deeds, Allah will thank them, increasing their conviction and exalt their faith. You have to understand again, it all starts by you asking for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said also in Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 13, they were young men. They were young men who believed in the Lord, and we gave them more guidance. Before the guidance came, they believed in Allah truthfully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most kind, increased the young men guidance when they believed in Him, when they fulfilled His rights, and when stayed away from evil desires. This is the state of every Muslim. This is the condition of every one of us if we fulfill Allah's rights. Act upon what we know, and that's a big one. We know a lot, but do we act upon what we know? And avoid all the causes of misguidance. And in return for all that, faith, conviction will be strong, elevation in goodness, leading, inshallah, all of us to heaven and eternal bliss. Umayr ibn Habib, may God be pleased with him, said, faith increase and decrease. And when he was asked how it increase and how it decrease, he responded, if we remember, thank, and glorify Allah, that is its increase. And if we are absent-minded, inattentive, and unmindful of Allah, that is its decrease. That's what dissipates the faith. This is when you actually go astray from the straight path. My dear brothers and sisters, faith and conviction are the source of all good and righteousness, and its foundation which you ascend from higher and higher the ladder of goodness. Without starting with the faith, you don't have the foundation, but you ascend from there. This is when you launch, inshallah, higher in goodness. It is like a tree, a parallel of a tree, which grows with multiple branches and higher, getting nourishment from its base. That tree will not stay alive, will not survive unless you feed it and unless you water it. You are not expecting to put a tree in the ground and don't water it, don't feed it, and expect it to grow, expect it to ascend higher and higher. It's illogical. It doesn't even make sense. And the same apply to the tree of Islam and being a Muslim. In the heart of the believer, we always say, when we claim Islam, when we declare that we are a Muslim, we have a responsibility. So actually that analysis of the tree, Islam and Muslim, in Islam and being a Muslim, in the heart of the believer, it will not survive unless its owner consistently feed it. Feed it with what? With beneficial knowledge of your deen, attending circle of knowledge, attending the halaqas, reciting Quran, and accomplishing righteous deeds. Imam Ahmad narrated on the authority of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, This is not an opinion. This is the word of the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet said what can be translated, faith wear out in the heart. Wear out in the heart. Like a gown wears out. When you buy a new clothes, it doesn't stay new forever. It wear out. And that's what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, saying. Faith wears out in the heart like gowns wears out. So renew your faith. This is a command of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to all of us, to renew our faith. So look closer and search your heart regarding your faith and conviction, my dear brothers and sisters, and work relentlessly to make it strong and take it higher in the rank of goodness with more righteous deeds and obedience to the merciful, most kind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know that worship is not limited to certain ritual or tradition, but it is a changing ways, condition, and conduct. Allah subhanahu all to follow the will and the guidance of the Almighty Allah. Muslim worship performing prayer. When it is time for it to be due, when the time for prayer is due, Muslim worship by doing prayer. They worship by voluntarily prayer when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the good heart and the ability to do that, to do voluntarily prayer. Worship reciting the Quran. Worship remembering and glorifying the merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in remembrance and glorification. Worship sending prayers and greeting to Muhammad, peace be upon him. Worship visiting and connected with relatives that they might actually boycott you, but you actually connected with them. And by spending in all avenue of goodness. You have to actually act again upon what you know. The believer heart stay connected and resigned in the area of spirituality and piety, turning from one obedience to another and from one worship to another. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you to worship in certain way, follow, go with it. And then change, it will change to another worship and go with it. That is how we ascend in the ladder of goodness. In these last days of the month of Sha'ban, we have 1 week left in the month of Sha'ban. And the coming blessed arena of the fasting months of Ramadan are the best opportunity for the believer that they may add faith to faith. It is an opportunity, and Allah give you breath and life to witness it. It's a gift. Not all of us will benefit. Not all of us will take this advice and put it into action. But if one of us, inshallah, may God bless our Imam for bringing such an awareness of this blessed day and the nights and a golden opportunity for all of us, inshallah, to harvest that blessing and ascend in the ladder of goodness. It is a blessed time for an honorable competition in accomplishing righteous deeds, which place people in different ranks in this life and in the hereafter, all with Allah the Almighty. We are not equal, my dear brothers and sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us in ranks in this life and in the hereafter according to what we do and what we do for His pleasure and only for His pleasure. Let us all today prepare, be truthful, and set our intention to be among those who are awarded the bounties of the month of Ramadan before its arrival. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most generous, to make us witness days and the nights of this blessed month with sincere intention. It's all with the intention, with sincere intention to increase and ascend with our faith higher and higher, and a strong conviction, making it complete, making it pure, making it perfect, inshallah, and only for the pleasure of the one and only, the owner, the creator of the heaven and the earth, and what's in between, Allah, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum. My dear brothers and sisters, just